The air on Xylos didn't just smell of ozone and damp earth. It smelled of time. It was a thick, metallic scent that clung to the back of the throat. The exhalation of the monolith that dominated the Valley of Kings. The structure was a shard of obsidian, impossibly tall and smooth, and embedded in its base, hilt deep, was a sword. It was not a weapon of elegant design. It was brutal, heavy, a length of pitted, gray-black metal with a cross-guard like a pair of fractured wings, and a pommel of fist-sized sphere of the same dead material. For 7 generations of Xylosi, it had been the central artifact of their culture, their failure, and their prophecy. The Arafkai, the unliftable. Kalen, a young scout of the slender, chitinous species, watched from a respectful distance as the champion of the Sunstalker clan strained against the hilt. The champion's 4 powerful arms bulged, his carapace gleaming with effort, his mandibles clicking in a furious rhythm. The air around the sword hummed, a low, dissonant chord that seemed to push back. With a final, defeated shudder, the champion was thrown back, landing in the red dust with a crack of disappointment. The hum subsided to its usual, mocking thrum. The prophecy was clear. When the sky fire brought the unbound, the Arafkai would be drawn, and the great silence would end. The Xylosi had spent centuries decoding the meaning. Skyfire was a meteor. Unbound was a creature, not a Xylos. The Great Silence was a planetary communications blackout that had stranded the humans 2 generations ago. The Xylosi, a deeply ritualistic people, had waited. They had observed the humans in their dusty outpost. These soft, 2-armed mammals with their loud machines and frantic energy. They were clearly the unbound, but none of them had ever been invited to try the sword. It was a sacred trial, not a carnival game. Kalen's thoughts were interrupted by a commotion. A human transport, a rattling, 6-wheeled rover, spewing smoke and noise, clattered to a halt at the valley's edge. This was a violation. The Valley of Kings was holy ground. 2 humans emerged, a man and a woman, their features obscured by environment suits. They were waving their arms, pointing not at the monolith, but at a reading on a device. They were geologists, Kalen realized. Scavengers. The Sunstalker guards moved to intercept, their ceremonial spears lowering. The situation was tense, a misunderstanding ripe for violence. The female human was speaking loudly, her translator box emitting garbled, nonsensical Xylosi phrases about seismic instability and harmonic resonance danger. Then it happened. A low groan echoed through the valley, deeper than the sword's hum. The ground trembled. It was not a ritual tremor. It was a true Xylosi quake. The monolith itself seemed to sway. A crack shot up its face, and a slab of obsidian the size of a house broke free, crashing down directly toward the arguing group. There was a scream, human, high and sharp. The Sunstalkers scattered with instinctual speed. The male human, instead of running, did something inexplicable. He shoved his female companion clear, but in doing so, he stumbled backwards, falling directly against the base of the monolith, his gloved hand slapping out for balance. It landed squarely on the hilt of the Arafkai. A silence fell, deeper than the great silence. The hum of the sword stopped dead. The human, a man named Elias Vance, registered none of this. He was aware only of a shadow of death above him and the solid thing his hand had found. As the slab fell, he pulled on it instinctively, trying to use it as an anchor to haul himself out of the way. And the sword moved. It didn't come free, but it shifted in its socket with a sound like a mountain cracking its knuckles. A shiver of energy, cold and ancient, shot up Elias's arm. The falling slab struck the ground a meter from him, shattering into 1,000 glittering shards that peppered his suit. The valley was frozen. The quake subsided. The Xylosi, from the humble champion to the lowest acolyte, stared. Their mandibles hung slack. Their large, multifaceted eyes were wide with terror that bordered on reverence. The sword had moved. For the unbound, Elias scrambled to his feet, dusting obsidian fragments from his suit. "Holy hell!" he breathed, his voice muffled by his helmet. He looked at the Xylosi, then at the hilt he had just touched. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to touch your thing." High Priest Althar, his carapace etched with the history of his lineage, approached slowly. He ignored the human's frantic apologies about earthquake faults and tectonic readings. He pointed a trembling, chitinous finger at the sword, then at Elias. The prophecy. Zalthar's translated voice was a whisper of awe. The Unbound has been touched by the Arothkai, and so it was that Elias Vance, a geologist from a failing Martian colony ship who had become a mechanic for a failing human outpost, found himself at the center of an alien religious crisis. He was invited, no, commanded, to return in 3 cycles and attempt a trial, back in the human compound, a collection of rusting hab modules called Last Hope. The story was met with disbelief. You pulled a sword out of a rock. Captain Reed, the outpost-weary leader, asked, rubbing his temples. I wiggled it. Elias corrected, to avoid being crushed. And now their big bug chief wants me to come back and try for full Excalibur. The debate was fierce. Some saw it as a chance for alliance, a way to finally get access to the Xylosi's knowledge of the planet, perhaps even a solution to the comms blackout. Others saw it as a trap, a sacrilege that would get Elias killed and bring the wrath of the aliens down on them. Elias, a pragmatic man who fixed water recyclers and patched hull breaches, wanted no part of it. He dreamed of open skies, of a message from home, of a life that wasn't defined by dust and decay. He didn't believe in prophecies. But he was also the man who had shoved his collie clear of falling rock. He understood duty. On the appointed day, the entire Sunstalker clan and representatives from every other major clan lined the valley. The air thrummed with a tension far greater than the sword's dormant hum. Elias stood before the monolith, feeling absurd in his patched environment suit. He had refused any ceremonial garb. Just pull, right? He muttered to the translator box a Xylosi attendant had given him. High Priest Zalthar intoned a long, clicking chant. The Arothkai knows its master. The silence awaits its end. Elias sighed. He reached out and wrapped his gloved hands around the hilt. It was cold, even through the suit's insulation. It felt dense, like holding a star's corpse. He took a breath, set his feet, and pulled. Nothing. It was like trying to uproot the planet itself. He strained, his muscles burning. The Xylosi watched, unblinking. He pulled until he saw spots, his breath fogging the inside of his helmet. Failure. A wave of disappointed clicking rippled through the crowd. He felt a strange pang of shame. He had let them down, these strange, earnest creatures. He relaxed his grip, ready to step away. As he did, his thumb brushed against a nearly imperceptible seam on the pommel. A memory flickered in his mind, not his own, but a sensation. The cold shiver he'd felt during the earthquake. The silence, not a technological failure, but a blanket, a suppression. He wasn't meant to pull the sword. He was meant to wake it. Ignoring confused clicks of the crowd, he stopped pulling. Instead, he focused on the pommel. He pressed his thumb hard against the seam, not with brute force, but with intent. He thought of the hum, the resonance. He thought of the great silence and his own deeper silence, the silence from Earth, the silence of a dying hope. Enough, he thought, a desperate, silent command. No more silence. A click, soft as a heartbeat, echoed in his helmet. The sphere of the pommel split open, revealing a cavity filled with a light that was not light, but perfect, resonant darkness. The gray-black blade suddenly glowed with intricate, silver circuitry that had been invisible moments before. The hum returned, not as a push, but as a pull, a harmony. The weight of the sword vanished. It lifted from the obsidian socket as if it were made of air, its true weight not physical, but metaphysical. It was a key. Elias held it aloft, not in triumph, but in wonder. The silver circuits pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Above them, the sky flickered. The static haze that had blocked communications for 50 years shivered and dissolved. For the first time in 2 generations, the stars of Xylos were clear and sharp, and across the human comms channel, a signal, weak but unmistakable, burst through. Is sole command, repeating, "Does anyone read? Is anyone out there?" The Xylosi did not cheer. They knelt. The great silence was over. The Unbound had not drawn the sword because he was the strongest. He had drawn it because he, like the sword itself, was a key that understood the weight of silence, and the simple, profound need to end it. Elias Vance stood holding a piece of a dead empire, the stars shining above him, and the sound of home whispering in his ear.